My wife left me with PTSD and 3 kids to raise while living poor in a trailer home. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. Don't forget to like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel. Now back to the story. That's not the kind of sentence you imagine becoming your reality. But here I am, telling you this from the same trailer she walked out of years ago. Just me. The rusted tin walls, and the memories that won't leave. Her name was Arya. I met her in the snow-covered northern Isles of Kyrvia, where I was stationed after surviving 2 brutal years on the Dorlathian frontlines. I was a broken soldier from a small farming town in Greyville, drafted at 18, and sent off to fight in a war I barely understood. By the time I met her, I wasn't looking for anything. Not love, not healing, just peace. Arya brought a kind of stillness I hadn't felt in years. She didn't flinch when I froze mid-sentence, or when I bolted awake at night from the sounds of bombs only I could hear. She smiled like she knew pain too, and somehow we understood each other without needing many words. When my service ended, I brought her back to Dorlath with me. That's when reality hit hard. Greyville wasn't ready for us. A war veteran with a haunted look in his eyes and a foreign wife with quiet ways. People whispered, some stopped speaking to me altogether. The only place we could afford was a rust-bitten trailer on the edge of town. Barely standing, barely warm. We did our best. We had our twins, Lyra and Kemi. A few years later, Jalen came along. And still, we fought to make the small space feel like a home. But the weight grew heavier. My PTSD got worse, my temper short, my silence colder. The money never enough. And Arya, she began to fade. Until one day, she was just gone. No letter, no fight, no goodbye. She left me behind, with the trauma I couldn't explain, and 3 children too young to understand what had just happened. And that's where the story truly begins. The morning Arya left was like any other, quiet, cold, and heavy with unspoken things. I had gone out early to pick up a shift, unloading cargo at the depot. When I came back, the first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the kind that children make when they're up to something. A different silence, an empty kind. The twins, Lyra and Kemi, were sitting cross-legged on the faded rug. Still in their pajamas, Jalen, just a toddler then, was curled up near the heater with a blanket half-dragging across the floor. They looked at me with eyes too big for their little faces. "Where's your mom?" I asked. Lyra shrugged, Kemi didn't speak, Jalen just stared. Then I saw it, the closet door slightly ajar. One side of it completely bare. No coats, no scarves, no boots. She was gone. There wasn't a note, not even a half-hearted excuse scribbled on a torn receipt. Just absence. I sat down on the edge of the creaky couch and stared at the wall for what felt like hours. I wanted to scream, punch something, maybe curl into a ball and disappear. But 3 pairs of eyes kept me tethered to the ground. They needed dinner. They needed help with their homework. They needed to be bathed, held, comforted. And so I moved. The first few nights without her were the hardest. Jalen cried himself to sleep calling out, "Mama." Lyra wet the bed. Kemi asked me every hour if she was coming back. And me, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my hands, wondering what I did wrong. Was I too broken, too angry, too poor? But the questions didn't matter. The fact remained she was gone. And now everything rested on me. I had to make a choice, break down or break forward. So I did the only thing I knew how to do after years of war. I survived. The trailer didn't have insulation. When the wind howled, it pushed straight through the thin metal walls like we were camping under the sky. The floor creaked with every step, and the front door stuck during the rainy season. The heater only worked when it felt like it. Sometimes I didn't. After Arya left, the trailer became more than a roof. It became a battlefield. Every day was a new war. I fought my mind in the mornings, when I'd wake from nightmares, sweating, fists clenched, heart thudding like I was still in uniform. I fought guilt every time I looked at my kids and saw the worry on their faces. And I fought exhaustion every night, when I'd finally sit down, only to be reminded that there was no backup coming. No relief, just me. The girls were stronger than they should have been. Lyra, the older twin by 10 minutes, took to cleaning, wiping counters with the same seriousness soldiers clean rifles. Kemi, quieter, always watched Jalen like a second mother, rocking him to sleep, telling him made-up stories when I couldn't find the words. I worked whatever jobs I could get. Construction, scrapyard lifting, nights at the freight line, some paid in cash, others in leftovers. There were weeks when dinner was a boiled root and bread crusts, weeks when the girls wore the same clothes over and over, and Jalen had shoes with holes in them. I remember one night in particular. The rain was coming down hard. We had a bucket in every corner of the trailer catching water. The lights were out, and all 3 kids were asleep on the same mattress. Curled up like kittens, I sat at the foot of the bed, soaked from patching a hole in the roof with a trash bag and tape. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was love. Messy, broke, heart-wrenching love. The kind that doesn't always look like warm hugs and bedtime stories. The kind that shows up in patched-up ceilings, in shared meals, in rocking, crying children with trembling arms. They had no idea how close I came to breaking, but every night I heard their breath rising and falling beside me. I knew I had to keep going. Not for me. For them. Lyra was 7 the first time she made dinner without asking me. Boiled rice, no seasoning, just rice and water. She didn't say anything about it. Just placed the plate in front of me like she'd done it 1,000 times. I stared at it for a long time, not because of the taste, but because I realized. She thought I needed the help. She wasn't wrong. Kemi took over the laundry. Jalen was still too young to do much, but he always tried to copy them, dragging his tiny blanket around, asking if he could help fold the shirts. I didn't have the heart to tell him they weren't shirts, just torn towels and hand-me-downs, patched up from the donation box at the church. They grew up too fast. Childhood slipped away quietly. Without permission, I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't want them to carry my burdens. But in a home where survival came first, innocence was the first thing we couldn't afford. I tried to protect them the best I could. When my mind spiraled, on the bad days when I couldn't stop the shaking or silence the flashbacks, I'd lock myself in the bathroom and run the tap so they wouldn't hear me cry. When I couldn't afford new shoes, I'd go without dinner to save up. When I had nothing left to give, I gave my presents. They never complained, never asked for more. That's what broke me the most. They should have been asking for toys and birthday cakes. Instead, they were asking if the electricity would be on this week, or if the soup would stretch 2 more days. But in that little trailer, something unexpected happened. We became a unit. Not perfect, not polished, but strong. Lyra once told her school teacher, "My dad is like a soldier even without the war." And I almost wept when the teacher repeated it to me. I didn't feel like a soldier anymore. I felt like a man who'd been abandoned, haunted by ghosts, barely holding it together with duct tape and desperation. But to them, I was standing. And that was enough. Where did Mama go? It was Jalen who asked. He was only 4. I'd just come home from a long shift cleaning out the town's storm drains, still covered in dirt and the stink of sewage. And there he was, sitting on the floor in mismatched socks, staring up at me with those big eyes. His sisters froze. They knew better than to ask. But Jalen didn't. He still believed in simple answers. I couldn't give him one. She had to go somewhere, I mumbled, avoiding his gaze. But we're still here and I'm not going anywhere. He blinked, then nodded slowly, like his little mind was still trying to piece it all together. That night, I lay awake listening to the wind push against the trailer walls. It creaked like an old man's bones. Just like mine did, I kept hearing his voice in my head. Where did Mama go? I wish I knew. I wish I could have explained it to myself first. Some days I convinced myself she was just overwhelmed. Other days, I wondered if she regretted everything about us. And in my darkest hours, I blamed myself entirely. Maybe I didn't love her enough. Maybe my silence was louder than I realized. Maybe she looked at me and only saw a man she couldn't fix. But none of that mattered anymore. What mattered were the 3 souls asleep in the next room. They needed stability, not a man lost in his regrets. So I lied. I told them Mama went back to help her sick family. I said she was working hard to send for us one day. I even wrote fake letters for a while and read them out loud. Dear Lyra and Kemi, I miss you so much. Be good girls for Daddy. Love, Mama. They smiled when I read those letters, and I broke a little more inside. I knew the day would come when those letters wouldn't be enough, when the questions would get sharper, when they'd stop believing in stories meant to protect their hearts. But for now, those lies were soft blankets on cold nights, and I needed the warmth just as much as they did. The rain always found its way in, no matter how many trash bags I taped to the ceiling or how many old buckets I placed under the leaks. The water still dripped through the cracks like it was mocking me. I used to laugh at it, until one night I couldn't. That night I came home soaked to the bone. I'd just finished a long shift at the scrapyard, paid under the table. My boots were falling apart. My knees ached, my back was screaming. I opened the trailer door and found all 3 of my kids huddled on the same couch, wrapped in one torn blanket. The roof had finally given out over their bedroom. Their pillows were wet, the mattress was soaked. Kemi had been crying. Lyra was trying to keep everyone calm, whispering bedtime stories over the sound of dripping water. Jalen had fallen asleep sitting up, his head resting on his sister's shoulder. That was the night I hit rock bottom. I didn't say a word, just walked to the back of the trailer and sat on the floor. I stared at the ceiling for hours, my clothes wet, my mind heavy, my heart hollow. I thought about giving up, not in a dramatic way, just disappearing, walking until my feet gave out, letting someone else take the burden. Surely, someone could do better by these kids than me. But then I heard Kemi's voice, soft, barely a whisper. "Is Daddy mad at us?" And Lyra's answer broke me. "No, he's just tired. He always gets back up." She said it like it was a fact, like it had never occurred to her that I wouldn't. That was all it took. I wiped my face, walked into the main room, and pulled them all into my arms, wet, cold, exhausted. I didn't have money. I didn't have answers. But I had arms that could hold them and a soul that refused to quit. I moved them into my bed that night. I slept on the floor. And the next morning, I started patching the roof again. Because no matter how broken I was, they believed in me. So I had no choice but to become the man they saw. Love in me. Not the soft kind. The kind that tucks kids in at night and smiles through storms. War had burned that part of me, her leaving scattered whatever was left. But somehow, over time, my children taught me how to love again, without saying a word. Lyra started brushing my hair in the mornings. Kemi drew little pictures of us and pinned them to the fridge. Jalen would crawl onto my lap after dinner and fall asleep with his arms wrapped around my chest like I was his whole world. And I guess I was. One evening, I was walking home from another double shift. My hands were sore. My body was giving out in ways I didn't talk about. When I reached the trailer, I saw something on the front door. A note in crayon, taped carefully. "We love you, Daddy. You're our hero. Lyra, Kemi, Jalen." I stood there staring at it for minutes, the words blurred behind tears I didn't expect. Not because they called me a hero, but because I didn't feel like I deserved it. A hero doesn't yell when he's overwhelmed. A hero doesn't lock himself in the bathroom to cry. A hero doesn't forget birthdays because he's too tired to count the days. But to them, I was enough. And that began to change something in me. I started putting notes in their lunchboxes. I began sitting on the floor with them while they colored. I hugged them more, even when my body felt stiff and awkward. I told them I loved them, even when my voice trembled. It was clumsy at first, but it was real. I learned that love doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. It just has to stay. And I was still here. So every day I stayed. And that was my love letter to them, one sunrise at a time. Outside our trailer, life moved fast and without mercy. Kids at school whispered when they saw Lyra and Kemi's second-hand clothes. Jalen got teased for bringing plain bread for lunch. I knew they noticed the stares, the pity, the way other parents hesitated to invite them over. Sometimes I wanted to march into that school and scream, "You have no idea how hard they're fighting just to smile." But I didn't. Instead, I taught them to lift their heads high, even when the world tried to shrink them. Still, I worried. I worried the world would crush their gentle hearts, that poverty would shape how they saw themselves, that my pain would become their prison. But again, they surprised me. Kemi joined the art club with her pencil drawings. Lyra stood up for another girl being bullied. Jalen brought home a perfect spelling test and a note from his teacher that read, "He's one of the kindest boys in class." In a world that judged them for what we didn't have, they bloomed anyway. I couldn't give them riches. I couldn't give them comfort. But somehow, they were growing into good, brave, loving humans. And it hit me, maybe the trailer didn't define them. Maybe I didn't ruin them after all. Maybe we were becoming more than our struggle. The trailer was never meant to be forever. It was supposed to be a temporary stop, a patch on a broken story. But as the years passed, it became something else. Ours. The walls were covered in crayon art and faded family photos. The couch sank in the middle, and the kitchen smelled like fried onions and worn-out love. It didn't shine, it didn't impress anyone, but it held memories, real ones. Like the night we danced in the living room during a thunderstorm, barefoot and laughing. Or the time we lit candles and turned a power outage into a bedtime adventure. Or how every single birthday, no matter how poor we were, the kids woke up to hand-drawn cards and a cup of sweet tea. We had joy here. We had safety. We had each other. I realized then, home wasn't about square footage or clean floors. It was about who stayed. And I stayed. Through every cold winter, every flooded corner, every panic attack I fought behind the bathroom door, I stayed. And they did too. Somewhere along the line, we stopped surviving and started living. The kids are older now. Lyra teaches literature at the community school. Kimmy owns a small art shop downtown. Jalen just got accepted into the University of Ural. He wants to be a counselor for kids with trauma. Said he wants to help boys like his father. That nearly broke me in the best way. We still have the trailer. It leans to one side now. Paint peeling, roof still stubborn during the rain. But I kept it, not out of need, but out of memory. This is where we grew. This is where we held each other up. This is where love outlived abandonment. People still ask about Arya. I tell them the truth, she left. But I stayed. And that has made all the difference. So if you've read this far, maybe you're going through something too. Maybe your trailer looks different. Maybe it's a job, a loss, a secret you carry that's heavy on your chest. Just know this, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to show up. Even broken love is still love. Even shaky hands can still hold. And even in the smallest, rustiest corner of the world, you can raise something beautiful. Please like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel for more stories.